Hi, I'm Andy Wible, and welcome to Timely Topics. I'm with Roberta King today, and we'll be talking about Proposal 1 that you'll be seeing on November's ballot. Welcome to the show, Roberta.
Hi, Andy.
Tell us about what Proposal 1 is. It's
Sure.
about not medical marijuana, recreational marijuana.
It is. It is a citizen-driven ballot initiative. So citizens and other people went out and got signatures to get this on the ballot. It is a citizen-driven initiative to end cannabis prohibition. It's also known as, you mentioned, recreational marijuana or adult use. So if you vote yes, it means you want cannabis to be available to be sold to anyone 21 and older in the state of Michigan. And if you vote no, you want us to remain a medical-only state.
Okay. So when this proposal comes up, do you know exactly what it all say? Will it be as clearly as you laid it out, or will it be in lawyer speak and all that?
No, the actual proposal is a fairly long, about 4 pages long in printed pages, with a lot of detail in it. And so the election bureau, board of elections, or whoever decides that specific language, had to sort of distill it down to something that people could read, because if you put all 4 pages on and people were, they would just get lost. And so I think they got it down to 100 or so words, which is still pretty big. But essentially there are a couple of things that it'll do. It'll allow anybody in the state of Michigan to possess or buy legal cannabis. It will be sold in a regulated sort of manner like medical marijuana, but you won't need a card to do it. You can possess up to 10 ounces, which is a pretty significant amount of marijuana. And it's probably a little bit more than most of the other states that have legal marijuana. So have your 10 ounces. And if you have that, you can't be arrested. Now, if you have more than that, or you sell it to a kid, or you sell it to anybody and get caught, then you'll be in trouble. Then it's a crime. But under 10 ounces or under, having that in your possession, you'll also be able to home grow a dozen plants, and so people will be able to do that if they are so inclined to go through that effort.
Effort would be to grow it. Do you have to have a permit or something like that?
No. You can just grow it in your home without legal consequence.
As long as it's under 12 plants?
12 plants, yeah. So if you're growing 100, then you're going to get in trouble. So if you have your dozen plants, you're in good shape. And then businesses will be able to be established. There is a provision for micro-growing in that, which isn't growing little plants, but growing small amounts of plants for sale to the public.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of concern because of the medical is really focused on people growing 500, 1,000, or 1,500 plants. And so those are kind of big growing effort. You need a greenhouse. You can't just do this in the spare bedroom or the basement of your house or a greenhouse in your backyard. So these micro grows are going to be 100 plants, and you can do that, and then you can sell that. Person to person, you can sell it. It can't go into a dispensary and be sold, but it can be sold to person. So you can have a small marijuana business, and you'd be able to process that as well, which processing is another word for making it into something else. So you could make it into a wax or a shatter, or you can make it into something edible like a brownie or a tincture or something like that.
So is this something that you could buy at the farmer's market, or is it something that there'd be a marijuana shop, or how? Or is it?
You would be a small licensed shop. You would be a business. So I don't think we're going to see it at the farmer's market because, and this is what's so interesting about cannabis and how it is coming forward in places. So every city, village, or township in the state opted in or opted out of being having marijuana businesses in it. So as you know, the city of Muskegon opted in, and the township of Eggleston opted in. Grand Rapids is still trying to decide if they're going to opt in or opt out. And then, Norton Shores opted out. So different places do different things. City of Newaygo opted in. and White Cloud opted in. So it's sort of in our area here. So anywhere that they have opted in, marijuana businesses can exist. So the micro businesses and then the medical businesses are all kind of in that same bucket, and they will be in those places. But if there's a city, township, or village that has not opted in, there won't be marijuana businesses there.
Even if this passes in November?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And in talking to municipalities, and this is one of the things that Grand Rapids has said in the past, that their city planner really wants to see how things roll out with medical, and what is that going to look like, and what are those businesses going to look like, and what is that going to do. Those cities that have medical businesses will probably then become part medical, part recreational, and they can talk about what that looks like too in a legal city or a legal community. So that's kind of how that's going to look.
Okay, good. So so now we know a little bit about what's going to be on the ballot, what we'll be voting for. I mean, you're an advocate for Proposal 1.
I am.
And what led you to support this? And I know you have a business called Canna Communications, if you want to mention that.
Thank you.
And also why you're an advocate for this.
Yeah. Well, there's three reasons that I'm really supportive of the proposal. One, I truly believe that adults have the right to put in their bodies whatever they want to do. Whether you want to drink a supersized soda, or you want to eat cupcakes and ding-dongs, or you just want to eat vegetables, or you want to, go paleo, that's your business. And I don't think that marijuana is any different than that. Beer, wine, tobacco, and whiskey, and the vices of alcohol and tobacco. It's your business if you want to do those things. If you don't do any harm to anyone else by doing that, then that's your business. I think you should be able to do that. Secondly, the prohibition of cannabis really hasn't worked. We've had issues with it in America since the early 1900s, but it wasn't until, Richard Nixon and the war on drugs, and he decided to, move marijuana into the Schedule I category of drugs. And so all drugs have a category of how they are controlled, and it is, highly controlled, like heroin and cocaine and some other of those big deadly drugs. And according to the Schedule I, there is no medical use for it. Now, that's being proven wrong in many circumstances, but it's still scheduled as Schedule I. Prohibition didn't work for alcohol, and it really isn't working for marijuana. 10 years ago, before Michigan became a medical marijuana state, you could get marijuana. I mean, it's not, it's a plant. People can grow it. It doesn't take a lot of manufacturing. Yeah. It isn't like you're going to have a meth house, you're going to have a pot house, and then you're going to have a house that smells, either you love it or you don't, but, smells skunky or smells really good, depending on how you think. But it's not, it just didn't work. It's been available for people, and prohibition of alcohol didn't work. It led to a very active black market that Michigan was quite a big part of during Prohibition due to our very close proximity to Canada. And then thirdly, the criminalization of marijuana unfairly targets people of color. And we know through statistics, the ACLU and others have been really helping to bring this to the forefront, that people of color are arrested at a rate 8 times higher than white people for possessions of small amounts of marijuana. It costs a lot of money too to do that marijuana roundup. So every year the ACLU says that states spend about $3.6 billion enforcing marijuana laws, and nationally arrests are made for marijuana possession. They're greater than all violent crimes combined. So if you took violent crimes and you took marijuana, marijuana arrests are greater than violent crimes. So, I guess the police could spend their time on violent crime, or they could spend it on marijuana.
Right, right. And that one of the things that you said, 8 times more likely if you're African American.
Yes, African American and Hispanic.
And Hispanic, so people of color. And yet they use marijuana at the same rate.
Same rate. They don't use it more. I mean, black people don't use it more. Hispanic people don't use it more than white people. Men don't use it more. But you look at how
Arrests.
that rolls out, and the arrests are greater.
Yeah. And so it's kind of amazing.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about your Canna Communications. And what role does it have?
Sure. So we do communication and public relations work for cannabis businesses. So my clients include lawyers and provisioning centers and a grower and provisioning centers. So that's the businesses that I work with right now. And so we help them with their communication, which for the most part is education. And that's, I guess, the one thing that surprised me when I opened Canna Communication, we've been open for a little more than a year now, is how much education work that I do. Just talking in, not only on our website, in blog posts, but for the work that I do for my clients, it's all about education, that people have a lot of questions about cannabis. They don't know that the state, will give you a card and they'll tell you how you can apply for a card. But once you get a card, people don't know where to go to get cannabis.
Right.
They don't know where the dispensaries are because of federal prohibitions. It's information that's hard to find except on a couple of specific websites like Leafly and Weed Maps, which are, and if you're in the know, you would know to go there. But if you had a card and you didn't have a specific caregiver, which is how medical is set up right now, that you get a card and if you know somebody who grows, they're your caregiver and you buy your marijuana from them. If you don't know somebody who grows, then you go to a provisioning center, and there's really only a handful of those around right now, because of licensing that's going on in Michigan right now.
Sure. And that will change if this proposal is passed. Would it be I forget when the election is, what date it is? It's the
6th.
The 6th.
Yep.
Thank you.
6th of November.
It's the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
Yep.
So it's on November 6th. So November 7th, does everything change, or will it take a while?
I think it's going to take probably 18 months to 2 years for things to really happen. That's what we have seen in other medical states. So most of the states that are adult use recreational right now, so that's everything along the Pacific Crest Trail, California, Washington, and Oregon, Alaska.
What are there, 8?
Colorado, there's 9.
9.
And then over on the East Coast. So it's all around us. It's that West Coast, and then Maryland, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then Alaska. And so it's closing in. Michigan will be the first, if it passes, it will be the first Midwestern state that has recreational marijuana. And of course, that Canada will go recreational on the 17th of October this year, which is very exciting for them. It's interesting for us. Keep in mind that if you go to Canada to load up, don't bring it back, because you will get in a bunch of trouble.
Right, because it's still federally
It's still
illegal.
Federally illegal. It is.
Right.
So.
And so how will that, if it's legalized in Michigan but still federally illegal, how does that affect how business is done here?
Well, it makes business difficult. And I think one of the things that's very difficult with it is banking. So people who, marijuana is a cash business. And so even if you go to a provisioning center, you will have to pay cash. A lot of them have ATM machines in the lobby, so you can get your cash and then do your business. So dealing with all that cash, banking it is very difficult. So it's a cash business, and it's not good to deal in that much cash. It's okay to have a couple $100 in your pocket, but having thousands and thousands.
I would think a small business owner would be worried about being robbed and things like that.
Yeah, and security is very, very tight in these operations, and they, but the money's kept in safes, and there are some other banking options that are a little complicated, but there are ways to work around it. So it's difficult in paying your taxes, and it's also difficult in doing business, like business deductions you would normally take for different kinds of services as a business expense. You cannot do that in a cannabis business. So it's not an easy business to be in, and I admire people that opt in and decide to go into it, but it doesn't make it easy. For everyday citizens like you and I, keeping in mind that if you go across a state line, that's a federal offense. So if you come up from Indiana and you are going to spend some time in Michigan, do not take your cannabis back there. That just do everything you want with it here. Don't fly with it. So if you fly into Michigan, don't fly out with it. That's just common
which
sense.
is a little concern. I've been embarrassed a couple of times leaving like a large bottle of shampoo in my backpack that I'd forgotten about. So
Yes.
you gotta be careful.
Yeah, you really do. And it's and granted, the TSA is not looking for your cannabis. They're looking for things that are going to blow up airplanes.
Yeah, right.
So, do people fly around with cannabis? Yes. Is it something I would? You're taking a chance. You're taking a chance. One, that it could become a federal offense. Two, well, it is a federal offense. And two, they'll take away what you have. So what you were going to bring home, if you're thinking you're going to bring something home, and TSA sees it and they decide to get rid of it, they'll get rid of it. So.
How important is it, if this passes, to have a legislature within Michigan that is willing to allow it? Or can the legislature, the Michigan House and Senate, do anything to restrict this proposition?
No. And they had their opportunity to do that earlier this year when before it actually went on the ballot and the signatures were counted and it was moving into the ballot language. There was an opportunity at that time, and there was a lot of talk about that if the House and Senate wanted to, they could have taken it, they could have adopted it, and they could have made Michigan a marijuana state. If they'd done that, then they could have changed the language of the ballot. Things could have come out. They could have done all kinds of things with it. But with a Republican-controlled House and Senate, I think they just didn't have the political will to say, as Republicans, we're the ones that brought marijuana to Michigan, and I think that they just didn't want that baggage, and so they let it go as it was. Now, where things will get snaggly is in the licensing, in the actually the implementation. So there will be things within that ballot language that have to be more closely defined and put into rules and for licensing and all those kinds of things. And we're seeing a lot of that in the medical right now. As medical businesses get licensed, the licensing entity of the state of Michigan, LARA, puts out every couple of weeks some new rules. So rules on packaging. So it used to be that you'd get a package, let's say, of a marijuana gummy, and you could flip it over and you could see what was in there and what it looked like. And now all the packaging is opaque. So it's just, they're going to have to make those fake Chinese dishes that you sometimes see, or the fake cakes you see in the bakery, so you could actually see what it looks like, because you're kind of buying it on faith for what it looks like now. So packaging, THC content, labeling, all of those kinds of things will apply to this. So there's going to be rules made and regulations and things that will influence how this actually rolls out, and hence that's
it'll take a while.
The 18 months to 2 years, I believe it's going to take.
Take that long to get going. All right, interesting. Why don't I throw a couple of concerns people have, and then have you reply. I mean, like DJ Hilson and some of our police have been concerned about this, law enforcement in general, as well as prosecutor. So first thing is they're concerned, although it's only for 21 and up, that this will give more access for kids to get their hands on marijuana, and that marijuana is bad for kids. There's been some studies that it affects their brain in negative ways. And so how do you reply to that?
You know, I hope that people who have oversight of children, sounds like government, but adults, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, older siblings, things like that, that they have to do their best to make sure that young people don't use cannabis. It's really important that, especially, in my mind, anybody who's, in college and under, really shouldn't use it. There's some statistics and some data about, brain development and cannabis. It's just not a good idea for young people to use it. So the 21 and older is really important, and it's important for parents and family members who do use it to keep it out of and away from young people. I think it's just like alcohol and cigarettes. Kids that are going to want to get it are going to get it. Is it going to be easier to get now? I mean, I can't project that. In some other states, they found that teen use, and this would be in Washington and Colorado, they found that teen use didn't increase that much more when the law changed,
it's been stable in those
steady.
Places. Yeah.
Slight spikes, but not what you would expect. That it was like, oh my God, every kid. And I think some of it has to do with its traceability. That cannabis, if you use it, will stay in your body for, depending on your metabolism, up to 3 weeks, 20 some days. It can stay there. So for student athletes, not a good thing, because they might be drug tested, or parents who are suspicious of their kids doing that. So it's really important for adults to be responsible for their own cannabis, to keep it away from kids. There will still be black market cannabis, and there will still be people that feel it's okay to sell pot to kids, and the same kind of people that feel it's okay to give them booze at a party, or go to the party store and give a young person a 6-pack or a package of cigarettes.
Right. And I assume you'd say the same thing about driving under the influence.
Bad idea.
It's
a bad idea. There's a mixed bag of statistics depending on who you look at. And where you look for those statistics about cannabis and driving, and has it increased in traffic accidents increasing in Colorado? And on one side they'll say yes, and the other side they'll say it remains the same. I would say that in all likelihood there would be some increase in traffic accidents. I don't know, It just makes sense to me that if you have that much more use, but then did we see an increase in traffic accidents when all the microbreweries opened up in the last 7 years all over this state?
Right.
I mean, we have highly potent beer. Everybody's like, oh, cannabis, it isn't what you smoked before. Well, neither is the beer that you're drinking anymore
it's like 8,
either.
9% alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously potent stuff. So, I mean, so could it, it's
something to be aware of, but
and don't do it. I mean, just don't drive high. I mean, it's illegal, just like it's illegal to drive drunk. Be responsible for your own actions.
All right. One last thing I want to bring up is that our prosecutor Hilson has said that this will make people unemployable because they won't be able to pass a drug test.
Well, if you are in the running for a job that you really and truly want, don't use marijuana. All right, because if you're going to get drug tested in employment law and employment policies supersede anything else that's going on. So if you work for a place and they say we're a drug-free workplace, we will pre-employment test you, we will random test you. If you're in an accident at work, we will test you. You know, you probably shouldn't use marijuana.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
true. And one of our sister schools, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, doesn't allow you to smoke. So cigarettes, any kind. So I mean, it can not just be for marijuana. It can prohibit whatever they want.
Any kind of behavior like that. So it's still one of those things that people have to be aware of what their workplace drug policies are. I think to the drug testing after accidents, statistics will tell you that and the big data will tell you that workplace accidents are most often not caused by alcohol or marijuana, but they're caused by stress, by misplaced something or other, so it slips and falls, and then fatigue.
Yeah,
that people
lack of sleep, fatigue.
That people tend to fall, yes. And so drug testing isn't always the best way. But it's the only way that people, and it's not, other than if you're applying for a federal job, it isn't the law anywhere that you have to be drug tested or you have to do drug, it's just habit.
Right.
So.
The companies do this, right?
Yep,
they think it makes them safe, when it probably doesn't.
Yes.
Right. Tell me about taxation. So will this collect taxes, and are the taxes going to be so high that people will just do black market anyways, or will it be something that's a good thing for the state in terms of collecting tax dollars?
So this is kind of interesting because the amount of tax money that will come in projected from recreational marijuana from Michigan is expected to be about $200 million. The tax level for Michigan recreational marijuana is going to be the 6% sales tax, and then a 10% excise tax. That 10% goes to roads and schools and all those kinds of things that we've heard about, and some research and education as well. The tax rate in Washington for marijuana is 37%.
Wow.
So,
considerably higher. Yeah.
Considerably higher. So our taxes are pretty low for that. So I don't think it's going to make a big difference. I mean, if you were buying it off the black market, well, you could, but it also would not be tested, which I think they're going to probably send all of our marijuana, the medical is being tested, and I assume that the recreational will be tested as well, at least for THC and CBD levels, and then some other harmful ingredients like mold and pesticides and things like that. So the whole should you buy it from your friend who grows in his basement, or should you buy it depends on how healthy of a product you want to put into your body. Right.
I buy my gin at the store.
Yes. Though if your friend had a still, and there are home brewers out there, give those guys a shout out. But it is one of those things that you do need to decide where it comes from. And you could save 16% off the sale price, but I don't know that 16% is going to be that much of a prohibition to keep somebody from buying something that kind of is a pricey product already. So, and
there are some expenses if you're doing it black market as well.
Yes, or if you're growing your own. I mean, it's like I said. I mean, it's a light intensive, heat intensive, air intensive, water intensive, kind of thing to grow.
Well, thank you for all this information about Proposal 1.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being on the show.
It was great. Thank you for asking me.
And thank you, everyone, for coming in and watching Timely Topics. We've been talking to Roberta King from Canna Communications about Proposal 1. And until next time, have a great day.